Is a video that shows how to extrude and make three-dimensional forms and geometries in After Effects with shape layers. So let's start with this first. I have a simple layout. I have a shape layer on the back just for background. I have a shape layer here which has actually three different shapes on it. They all have a white fill. And right now we are in, if you look at this composition, we are in the Cinema 4D renderer. Yeah, so right now everything's in a 2D layer. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So here we are on the shape layer 2, which has all these multiple forms. I can go ahead and just go to select on the 3D layer, and you can see instantly it's going to give us the kind of overview that we did with the 2.5D, and I can, of course, select this layer, move it forward and backwards, but there's really no depth. So in here, I can go down to geometry options, and again, geometry options is something that only appears when you have the Cinema 4D renderer intact. So I'm going to go ahead and add some extruded depth just so you can see. You can see that with an extruded depth and no light, I'm still just kind of getting some flat, kind of flat effects. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new light just so we can see. I'm going to make this parallel light, which is, I think, easy because it's directional. I'm also going to just leave it white. And so that's going to start showing us some light and dark. I actually say it's kind of a little too flat, so I'm going to change that parallel light. You can, of course, go to a light and transform, light options. And here, the first option is parallel. I'll turn on my spotlight, and I'm going to change it to an actual spotlight. And so then I think we'll be able to have a little bit more of a, here I'm changing the point of interest. I'm going to take the cone angle and make it wider. And I'll bring up the intensity a little bit more. And so you can see, you can start seeing some more dimension as you are extruding and lighting. Okay, so part of this is, well, what can we do? Well, one, this is a way that we can show some solid forms. These have a simple solid fill on them. So we have our shape layer, and the contents have a solid fill on them. So I can also add a stroke, and I'm going to hide this fill and play with this stroke. Let's give it, maybe 2 degrees, something like this. So you can also kind of make some interior shapes. These, similar to how we work with the typography, we can play with these so they have, their extrusion has some form to it. So under geometry options, I can go down to bevel style. I'm going to make it convex so it seems rounded, and I'm going to move that bevel depth until these seem kind of more like donuts. And it's always a dance. I'm going to shrink the stroke width until I find something that is what is in my mind. But ultimately, I'm just playing with you to show some options here. Okay, so if you have something like this, this is a way you can extrude and play with some shape layers. And again, just through using the Cinema 4D and extrude, you can get some nice effects. I'm going to just show you the transform. Let's just so you can get a sense of how the light is playing. I'm rotating this back and forth. So this is the basics of how you would create shapes and extrude them to create forms. Now, that seems kind of limited, but of course it's just about how you start to be creative with them. So I have a few other things kind of prepared so you can see how they can be applied. Here I have a simple shape animation that basically is using 4 circles and a trim path with a center line. So also, all I can do in here is turn on this shape layer and start to extrude some of these um, shapes, and I'll just show you what it looks like at the end because it's already rendered. Um, and you can extrude those shapes and kind of turn the entire thing en masse to get something that might look like this. Another thing that we can do is here I have a single, I'll play it first. Oh, it's taking forever. There we go. This is a single shape. I generated it through, it is a polystar. The polystar, I just gave 4 points instead of 5. And then I used some of the inner roundness and outer roundness to kind of make it look like a puckered kind of square. I have a trim paths that's based off an offset. And then you can see down here I have the trim multiple shapes are individual, so they're all functioning individually. And then I have a repeater with 5 copies, so it's just one element repeated 5 times through a repeater. And then I have the sequence animated. So that's another example of something that you can do with extruding shape layers in